Hello, everyone. On behalf of India Net Zero Alliance and First View Group, I am Ella Khan extending a warm welcome to each and every one of you to today's webinar on Net Zero Energy Roadmap Data Center. It is my pleasure to be here as your host. We would like to extend our gratitude to our esteemed guest speakers and the attendees for their valuable presence in today's webinar. Your active participation will contribute to make this event successful. I would here like to make a small note. Speakers are kindly requested to remain on mute when not speaking to avoid disruptions. Welcome to the Net Zero Energy Roadmap Data Centers, an insightful webinar focused on achieving substantial net zero data centers, an essential conversation for the future of digital infrastructure. As the global data center industry expands, energy consumption is surging, with estimates suggesting the IT sector could account for up to 20% of global energy use by 2030. The urgency of sustainable solutions has never been greater. This webinar aims to empower participants with knowledge and actionable strategies to transition toward net zero energy data centers in India. Through expert insights, case studies, and discussions, attendees will learn to align operations with global sustainability goals and navigate evolving regulations in the data center sector. May I now request Mr. Nitin A. Harne, Senior Director, Enterprise IT and Cloud Transformation from Capgemini, and Mr. Sameer Barpande, Program Manager Data Services from Capgemini, to deliver the keynote address on driving green data centers and sustainable transformation, pioneering environmental stewardship in IT. Attendees, I request you to post your questions and they will be taken up after this speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ala. That's for the quick introduction. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nitin, and I have been joined by my colleague Sameer here today for this initial briefing keynote for this today's net zero energy roadmap for data centers. We both come from IT background. Okay, we have spent almost 20-25 years in IT, and as you all know that most of our time has gone into data centers build, eventually over a period of time we have gone into the new ways of working and more on applications and more on the microservices based architectures and those kind of stuff. But while we do this, we thought, okay, we thought, okay, it could be good to actually share our perspectives here, that how we can actually contribute to the net zero energy roadmap from a IT perspective or as an organization perspective. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So it's a very brief presentation. We'll just talk about the background, okay, what typical organizations are looking at, and our India perspective, where do we stand and where is the drive that is coming, and what are the approaches generally we come across, or maybe we actually recommend to the people, various organizations, and we are open to listen to the following Q&A and discussions, panel discussions to get some more ideas. Yeah, move on to the next one. So, we just trying to restrain it from an India perspective. Okay, these are some of the figures that we generally come across from India perspective, where is growth happening currently. Okay, and such kind of growth is purely defined by the government initiatives that are currently in place. Okay, for us in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of various rules and regulations that are being implemented by the government in terms of, say, STPI regulations, or it could be from a perspective of personal data protection acts and maybe IP regulations and foreign trade policy. And to a large extent, IT also plays a significant role for such kind of strong economy, correct? Because it helps us to get a lot of foreign currencies, and good name in the international circuits in order to get good money and investments attraction from outside the world. Okay, we have seen a good amount of export growth from IT perspective over a period of time. last 20 years, we are significantly, expanding, and it is a good impetus actually for the IT industry by getting more and more benefits from the government. Can we move on, please? So, looking at the overall perspective, okay, from IT as such, okay, you will see that there is a significant amount of growth as far as IT is concerned. So, earlier we have observed some tier one cities getting into the GCC space, and maybe companies are starting their offices and doing the services business, and now the tier two and tier three cities are also clicking up. uh, Definitely, labor arbitrage is one of the area where which is significant contributions to the overall growth. But at the same time, there is a huge amount of talent pool which is available in India. Okay, and many of the Western world countries are actually looking at India not just from IT services perspective, but also from an engineering services perspective, also from allied services into this particular space by building more and more GCCs, global capability centers in India. And if you look at the graph here, right, so it shows that okay, definitely the cities which are we were earlier doing good. In fact, there is more and more demand coming up in those. Hello. Yeah. So, no, hold on. Go to the previous slide only. Yeah. Sorry. So there is a huge amount of traction which has been building up into GCC development. Okay, and definitely the locations which we saw before, right? Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Chennai, and those kind of stuff. But there are also second tier, two tier cities are being preferred, and they are also like growing very fast. Okay, definitely India has proven from a cultural perspective to the outside world that okay, how we are best suited, okay, from a, from a talent perspective, and our working culture with them has been very good. Okay, and that's actually giving us a lot of positive sides actually for India in order to expand from an IT perspective, not just from an Indian context but also from a global perspective. But having said that, okay, it also brings in more challenges to us from a perspective of developing IT and actually maintaining it for our people. And one of the areas which is critically seen by the Western world is also a security and the capacities that we have available here in India from an infrastructure build perspective. So if you just go back 10, 15 years back and then see where were we on the infrastructure, whereas where are we today, I think we are growing in much faster pace and meeting that requirement in order to fulfill the requirements of the Western world. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So typically, what we see that okay, every organization is behind doing some kind of digital transformation initiatives. Okay, these being for local as well as for the global customers, and the whole objective okay is actually to to improve the efficiency okay of any individual organization. Okay, also to increase customer experience okay for the people, right? Similarly, some kind of competitive advantage, okay, by having a good efficiency and by having a good experience, customer experience, in order to retain the customers from a long-term perspective. And definitely, cost saving is one of the other lever, right, which organizations are trying to embark on. And for achieving this kind of objectives, right, to increase the agility and security and everything, right, you have to actually work on multiple dimensions. And as I mentioned in the digital transformation at the bottom, okay, these are the areas, right? Be it IoT or maybe be it AI or maybe it could be technology related solution. It could be in communication. So each of the area has to grow, has to together has to go to the next level of maturity. Okay, and while doing it that okay, what is required is that the organizations have to decide whether they are, while doing this implementation of IT or digital transformations, they also have to determine that are they really paying good attention okay to the core of business strategy, but as well as uh, what they are supposed to be contributing to the overall society in terms of sustainability. Okay, so if the strategies of business and are and sustainability is meeting, actually that's another, that will be perfect match kind of situation. Similarly, while doing the digital transformations on all these aspects, right, they also have to keep in mind multiple other aspects within the sustainability, right? So it could be carbon emission, it could be waste management, it could be green software development, it could be cloud computing, right? So selection of right technology, right, for each one of them while developing it, so that we minimize the disturbance to the society, and we contribute to the overall uh, digital transformation of any organization. So having said that, you will see that, okay, I'm just trying to show some kind of graph on the right hand side top, which is your Gartner hype curve, right, where it talks about what is coming up our way down the line, and you'll see that, okay, there's only AI and digital transformations and Internet of Things and those kind of stuff, right? So the demand is huge, actually. The curve, the bell curve, which we call it as a Gartner curve, right? Uh, it- what we have a long list of innovations that are coming our way, and this is the right time, actually, or maybe I would say that we are not at late, but it's a right time actually to start thinking in this direction of thinking more about the sustainability, thinking more about the society, and thinking more about our own as an organization, right, what we are supposed to be contributing to the world. Okay, we may be in the different phase of transformations. Okay, some organizations are already ahead of the curve, some organizations are still yet to start. But then at every stage, okay, if you are in early stage, I think it is the right time actually to start contributing to that, and build on top of it. Of course, while doing this, one of the critical challenges to have uh, some kind of uniform understanding across the organizations for every organizations, okay, in terms of people and in terms of skill development in this domain, so that the people who do the right choice of technologies, or maybe selection of right products for developing their product line or services, is very, very critical. And with that, I think I will hand over to Samir. Okay, I'll skip one slide because I think I'm out of time. Samir, you want to quickly take over?
Yeah, thank you, Nitin, for giving the solid information about the growth in the data center business into the specific to the India market. Okay, and having
Can
said
you go on
that,
the slides, please?
yeah,
Yeah,
can you
next
just,
one.
yeah,
Next one.
can we
Next
go
one.
to the next one? Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah, here. So, sustainability and net zero is the major thing. As we are growing, we are digitally growing. We have a lot of missions to complete those within a time frame. But parallelly, we need to look into that as we are growing into the space of data centers and digital economy, right? So, we need to consider about sustainability and the net zero. So one of the America's governor has said that we are the first generation in the to feel the impact of the climate change, and we are the last generation that can do something about it, and that is really fact because we are the generation we need to think about it. If we are so late, then we might not able to save this complete planet. Can you just move to the next slide? So, as an IT industry, what exactly the roles we can play to bring the sustainability and net zero kind of a thing, as if it growing most of the data center business growing around the world and specifically for the India as well, right? So the specifically sustainability is the key factor for us. Where we can say that as we are growing in the data center space, we will be implementing certain measures which will be going to save majority of our nature, plus we are not going to destroy the natural resources. That is the one thing. Again, as an corporate, we have other responsibilities also, so right, every corporate has now gotten their goal to maintain the sustainability as well as what is their contribution into the net zero, right? So there are certain standard about it, right? So building related sustainability, the space related, and so forth. There are multiple guidelines on that, and also there is an complete environmental impact. once we are growing, right? So we are expanding the spaces, we are consuming a lot of energies, we are just increasing the carbon footprint, right? So which is not very specifically environment friendly, but we can optimize, we can minimize that. And that is what is exactly the importance of sustainability in this green data center is very important. Can you just go to the next slide? So as an IT, what is our contribution in green data center and net zero to achieve the goal specifically for most of the IT companies, right? So looking at a broader perspective, everywhere nowadays you can see that it's a AI and ML world, and there is a Gen AI and all those stuffs, right? But as an IT company, as a smart things, we can utilize this AI to optimize the operation of the data centers. How we can optimize the data center operation by using AI and analytics. Where are the what are the levers we can bring in to utilize the complete AI monitoring base or AI related operations and ML related functionality, which will going to optimize the energy consumption, and it will give the efficient result while we will save exactly the energy bills what we are getting today for the data centers. And this is going to lead us to predict the forthcoming failures and breakdowns into data center equipments. uh, then second is specifically to the proposed edge data centers. Now, as we see that there is a lot of growth happening into the data center space in India, right? So as an IT company, whenever there is a requirement from the customer to have set up a data center, or they need to have to grow with their businesses on premises, right? Because of the certain regulations and finance related regulations or security related constraints, right? So instead of we would be having a large data center in a single place, we could propose them edge data centers, which will relatively having a lesser space. The consumption of power and energy is quite different over there. It will save the limitations to the equipment as well, and ultimately it will use very less natural resources for that particular space or that particular land, right? And that is where we can able to create small edge center to the nearest location, which will be ultimately reduce the latency of the network as well, so that customer will be having a better experience. That is something as an IT we can propose. Again, where it is required, we can propose the quantum computing integrations, right? So quantum computing has a significant computation power with a lesser energy utilization, so that will be going to be a great advantage in future. Also recently we heard about Google launch his Willow quantum platform. uh, then basically the efficient hardware is a very important part. Whatever the IT currently using, it's a traditional complete IT infrastructure. If we are running any AI ML or any graphical related machines or programs, right? So we should utilize the specific related CPUs and GPUs, so that the energy can be consumption will be a reduced one, and it will going to benefit to the save the energy, as well as the data center, whatever the energy they are consuming for running this particular computation power, that going to be a significant change for them. So right hardware which is kind of a efficient hardware, efficient equipment which is a energy rating, so that going to save us a lot of consumption of power and as well as the resources. Then about the software, which is a sustainable software design. So while we are designing a software, right, so our software design in a such a way that it will be happening with a less consumption of computational power, less memories required, and the hardware which we will be going to utilize, it should be a kind of efficient hardware, energy efficient hardware, rather than we will be running everything on a old one. So that going to save us again a lot of energy, plus give the contribution to the green energy and sustainability as well. And the last but not the least is circular economy. It's a circular economy is nothing like that. We have a lot of equipment in data centers, servers, storage, backup, and everything, right? And IT guys are using that rigorously, right? So instead of decommissioning, or instead of those immediately get phased out, we can refurbish it, we can reutilize it. And also we need to have to do the proper e-waste management of all those post decommissioning all, right? So that is how we can again contribute to the sustainability and the energy consumptions of those equipment, so that we will be not procuring multiple hardwares for the same parallel things what we are currently doing. So that going to save the cost as well as the energy for us. Next slide, please. Yeah, and what is the future trend and opportunity in this net zero, to achieve the net zero goal? So the one which I already talked about, quantum computing. I think most of the leader players in this AI and ML things like Google and all AWS, they're already working on the quantum computing platform, and that is the future looks like. And if we have that, so it will be doing a lot of functionality in a fraction of second and with a less compute power, and that's a really a good advantage. But the only thing is that those platforms, if we want to utilize, we need to have to rewrite our application, or we need to create an application which will be going to run on this particular quantum platform. Then again, the designing, whatever the chip designing we are doing today, so our focus is that our computation power, how we can reduce by doing a low power chip development, so that we will be not consuming a lot of energy. We don't have to produce lot of sustainability related concepts, so that we will be continuously innovating this particular chip designing. Again, we can innovate the modular data center, which will going to benefit on energy perspective, and ultimately it going to contribute into the net zero roadmap. And better standard and open source tool, so that is the main key. We should have utilize open source tool which will be having easily available, and it is a quite efficient to to the completely do the data center operation and monitoring perspective, as well as it should have a better standard, so that it will be having a standard rating, and data center energy efficiency will be gained by using this kind of tools. uh, Next slide, please. Yeah, and that is where the sustainability and net zero is a key component for data center business. And as a IT, these are the quite a significant lever. By utilizing these, we can contribute to the net zero achievement of goal and sustainability both together. Uh, yeah,
Sure.
I
I
think
think,
yeah,
Samir, I think we are running out of time. Okay. So
yeah.
thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Samir, thanks for that
Thanks.
insight in technical areas. And I appreciate everyone for your time and for joining. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ala.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Harne and Mr. Barpande, for that insightful presentation. Now, I would request Mr. Kartikeya Sharma, Chief Business Officer and co founder of Sunshow, to deliver his presentation. Over to you, sir. Mr. Sharma?
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Hi,
Sir?
is the presentation
You
visible,
can,
Ella?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
yeah,
Can you just make it
you
full?
go in the presentation mode.
Sir, it's still not full screen.
Yeah, how about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Nitin and Samir, and thank you, First View, for organizing this webinar. I think we have a fantastic collection of people, leaders from the data center industry itself. So I'm going to make it very quick. So at Sunshore, we are one of the leading decarbonization providers for industries across the country. We have about 500 megawatts of operational capacity and about 4 gigawatts that we plan to set up over the next 4 years. With the backing from Partners Group, we have about $400 million in equity capital to deploy in green power assets. And that is going to help us get to the 5 gigawatt number that I just talked about. Now getting directly to the data center industry, we all know that data centers in India are set to grow at an explosive pace. And the kind of demand in India that is coming from hyperscalers such as Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, or Google is really driving this, along with the proliferation in generative AI. um, Globally, when we look at the primary divisions of the world, I've just tried to put together a comparison between India, China, US, and EU, where we can see that per million users in India there is only 1 megawatt of data center capacity available. So coming from a power producer background, I think the most one of the most exciting things about serving data centers as a IPP for us is that we measure our assets. We both measure our assets in megawatts. So data centers, if you look at the US, which is obviously famously the biggest internet proliferation in the world. 92% of Americans actually have active usage of the internet. India, of course, is far behind at about 63%, but as a country, we are getting there. Um, Data in US, almost 16 gigawatt of data center capacity already exists. There is about 51 megawatt of data center availability per million users. In India, we are at about 1 megawatt. A recent report suggested that we are poised to reach about 17 gigawatts of data center capacity by 2030. Now I leave it to the industry experts to comment on this. But we understand that almost 6% of total power demand in India might actually go to data centers by the time we reach FY30. And that really makes power one of the key things that data center operators today are thinking of. And it is not a surprise that almost 50% of operational expenses for data centers is actually towards power. And as more and more generative AI use cases come forward, this is only going to grow. So, from a environmental impact perspective, it is very important to know that 73% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions actually come from energy production. And because energy is the core raw material for data centers, it is very important that data centers actually think about moving to round the clock renewable energy. In fact, the hyperscalers that we talked about, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, they have all committed to round the clock use of renewable energy for all their use. So naturally, that obligation kind of translates into their data center providers, and so hence data centers are one of the most important customers for IPPs such as Sunshore when it comes to building round the clock renewable energy solutions. So in the rest of this presentation, I will just talk about how data centers are a very unique power customer. So the most important thing about data centers is that while they, on the outside, they look like any other real estate asset, right? It's basically a tower filled with racks and racks of compute and storage. The power use ramp up is actually quite steep and can go up to 25 megawatts in a single tower. So here I am presenting a case study of a single tower for a hyperscaler data center. And what's very important for us to understand is while a data center might start, let's say we are in Q3 FY25 right now. Let's say this data center uses about 10 megawatts of power right now, around the clock. But it's going to grow and go up to 25 megawatts over the next 8 quarters. And this is really the most unique part of data center power requirement, right? And if you need to, and what data center operators are looking for is making sure that at every step of this journey, it's literally a step, right? For every step of this journey, they are able to use maximum renewable energy because that is the expectation from the hyperscaler customers. So I'll talk about how something like this can be achieved in a state in India, and the state in focus is Maharashtra, right? Because Maharashtra is in fact the most is you can say it is the hottest state in India with data center capacity. So looking at what do data center operators really want? They want a maximum offset using renewable energy, and they want to have it at the lowest possible cost. right? So that it becomes more competitive as compared to global data centers. But at the same time, the kind of renewable energy solution that you go for may vary widely, when you examine it in the light of potential risks. So, for example, if you take Maharashtra, you have to think of what kind of banking provisions exist for renewable energy, what kind of delivery timelines exist for solar versus wind power, what kind of change is anticipated in time of day tariffs, and what kind of contract demand you need to plan, while your running round the clock load increases. So with that, here are two kind of scenarios that we have modeled. So taking the same example, the red line that you see here is the ramp up load of about 25 megawatts. And what we see over here is that by the time you reach the end of FY25, um, you're looking at about 41 megawatts of solar capacity and about 23 megawatts of wind capacity, uh, to fulfill about 74% of your overall energy use with renewable energy. Now, one needs to really be mindful about what is the eventual ideal solution. So, in this case, the eventual ideal solution is 41 megawatt AC solar and 23 megawatt of AC wind. And we are looking at this in the light of the existing time of day tariff structure in Maharashtra. Um, so once you know that this is the ideal mix in your steady state, you can plan a ramp up, right? You can start with about 4 megawatts of wind to begin with, then ramp it up to 11, while you go for a big solar upfront, and then you ramp it by, in steps of 4 megawatt, then 8 megawatt, then another 7 megawatt. And you're basically adding capacity every 2 quarters. So about every 6 months, you need more solar and you need more wind. And wind you're pushing out towards later, because wind as a technology takes more time to come up, right? So you might as well ramp up on solar first and then add wind capacity. This is also very interesting aspect of planning your capacities. So it's important that you work from a end use perspective, what is the eventual solution, and then work backwards. The good news is that you can offset over 74% of your power using RE in Maharashtra and save up to almost 70 crore rupees. Now, what happens if the TOD structure actually changes in Maharashtra? You know, this is what really happens. So the ideal solution actually becomes a flip in this case. You end up seeing that you need actually 42 megawatts of wind and 21 megawatts of solar to get maximum savings, and the maximum savings also in this case actually become lower. Now the reason of that is primarily the new TOD is basically ends up billing lower for a grid, but that's a detail that we can discuss one on one later. But the good news is that you offset even more. So from a 74% offset, you reach almost a 79% offset of renewable energy. But at the same time, the right approach to building your solutions and to build your RE capacity ramp up in Maharashtra, if you're looking at intrastate solutions, it's very important to find a midway, so that you don't end up in a situation where you're sitting with capacity which you're not able to use. So the broader point that I'm trying to make is, one needs to not just look at a plain solar or a plain wind solution, or just look at it in the light of the current regulations or the current provisions, but have a very strong outlook and plan your power purchase and your solutions in light of what can work in the future. So with that, I would want to end my presentation and make time for the discussion at the panel. At Sunshore, in Maharashtra alone, we are planning about 650 megawatts of solar capacity, another 100 megawatt of wind capacity. We are, planning our capacity on a quarterly basis. So we have about 60 megawatts of solar capacity coming up every quarter in Maharashtra, about 100 megawatts coming up by the end of this financial year, the next financial year in wind. And we'll be very happy to connect with data center operators who are looking for renewable energy in the state of Maharashtra. You can scan this QR code and fill up the form to see, in case you want to get in touch with Sunshore, and we can build you solutions and help you analyze all the risks that are pertaining to the state of Maharashtra or anywhere else in the country. So thank you, and over to you, Ella, for moving ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma, for that illuminating presentation. Next, before we move on to our panel discussion, I would request my team to play the video of Sunshore.
Drives the Indian industry. Yet, 70% of this energy is still generated from coal, increasing both energy expenses and the carbon footprint of your business. But you can now turn this around and move to 70% clean energy in just 6 months. Choose a sustainable future for your business with Sunshore, one of India's largest clean power producers, with our round-the-clock power supply to facilities of all sizes across the country. And yes, with this switch, cut down your power costs for the next 25 years. Make your power move with Sunshore. Sunshore, making India's power move.
Thank you, team. So, before we move on to our highly anticipated panel discussion, I would like to make a brief announcement. We encourage all attendees to actively engage in the discussion by posting their questions in the Q&A box. Our esteemed panel speakers will address these questions during the interactive Q&A session, which will be after the panel discussion. So, without further delay, let us begin our highly anticipated panel discussion session for today. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel of experts who will share their insights and expertise on the topic at hand. We have Ms. Vibhuti Garg, Director, South Asia Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, who is our moderator for the session today. Mr. Girish Dhavle, Chief Technical Officer, Data Center Business, Sifi Technology Limited. Mr. Karthikeya Sharma, Chief Business Officer and co-founder, Sunshow. Mr. Akhil Agarwal, Head Power Management and Renewable Energy, ST Telemedia Global Data Centers, and Mr. Sindhu Sharma, Head ESG, Nextra by Airtel. Ms. Vibhuti Garg, the Director of South Asia Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, will be the moderator for the session today. So let's start. Over to you, Ms. Garg.
Thanks, Ala, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, Mr. Nitin and Mr. Sami, for setting the context and how IT can enable net zero in the data centers, and Karthike for highlighting the technology solutions and illustrating it with a case study. Um, Given how these data centers, and especially we are seeing that artificial intelligence are kind of becoming one of the big electricity guzzlers, I would say it is becoming essential to transform data centers for efficiency, resilience, as well as sustainability. And I am happy to see that there are so many now IPPs that are coming up that are offering these solutions to specifically the data centers, not only in India but globally as well. Now, as we all know, India is kind of witnessing increasing energy demand. And the surge, I will say, is primarily can be attributed to increasing economic activity. We are seeing an upsurge in manufacturing as well, but also in terms of greater electrification and improving, I would say, also, in the form of more aspirations. We are also seeing increasing AC loads because of the increasing, the rising power or rising demand that has been led by increasing AC load as well. And more importantly, demand coming from sectors like data center, electric vehicles, and green hydrogen production as well. IA estimates globally, that by 2030, data centers will consume about 8% of total energy demand globally, which currently is about 1.1 to 1.15% now. Uh, and as far as India is concerned, we do have estimates from Namura, who kind of predicts that the demand will grow from 960 megawatt from today to between 7.5 gigawatt and 9 gigawatt by financial year 2030. So this is the kind of scale that we are talking about, and the increase in demand that will be coming only from the establishment of more and more data centers in the country. India has set up its goals that in terms of on climate as part of its nationally determined contribution, which are called the NDCs, firstly to reduce emission intensity by 45% by 2030 compared to the 2005 level. Also, it has committed that it will generate 50% of installed electric power from non-fossil fuel sources by 2030. And in terms of its long term goal, it has committed to achieving carbon neutrality by 2070. So I think with this, it becomes important that how different sectors are helping India achieve those goals. And today, as I said, we'll be specifically discussing the net zero roadmap for data centers. And today, Ala has introduced that the the panelists who are joining us today are Mr. Girish, Mr. Kartike, Mr. Akhil, and Mr. Sindhu. And the three of them are kind of responsible for improving the sustainability of data of their respective data centers of their organization. I would want to begin with all of you, Mr. Girish, Mr. Sindhu, and Mr. Agarwal. Especially we did see Mr. Nitin mentioning that there are, target setting happening, and about 66% of the organizations so far have already set up these targets for net zero in the data center. Want to understand from your perspective, how far are we or what kind of developments are we seeing by data centers in setting up these goals, especially when they are meeting the demands of international clients as well? What are the big headwinds and tailwinds that you see in kind of help in achieving these targets? So the target setting, the role of target setting, what kind of targets are we seeing? Are they, I would say, ambitious enough? And then what headwinds and tailwinds are you seeing in achieving those targets? So we can start with you, Mr. Akhil, and then I will request Mr. Girish and Mr. Sindhu to respond to the same question.
Yeah. Thank you, Vibhuti, and thank you, organizer, for me in this webinar. First of all, Vibhuti and my co-panelist, I would like to tell about the India digital story, because India digital economy is projected to reach almost 1 trillion by 2030, and its share of GDP is on track to grow from current 22 from 10% to 20% by 2026. And highlighting the unprecedented and massive demand for digital infrastructure expansion, uh, this fueled by the rapid scale of digitalization, wide adoption of the public cloud, rise of the 5G, and the unique Indian digital public infrastructure. So, if you will see the Indian story, we have leapfrog almost 9 times in last 9 year, from 150 megawatt capacity to almost 1200 to 1400 megawatt capacity as of now. And this growth is further unprecedented with a remarkable 33% CAGR. And we are anticipating another 1 gigawatt to be installed in next 1 year. And this growth will remain continue. And we are anticipating that by 2030, we'll have almost 7 to 9 gigawatt of IT capacity of the data center, which will require almost 15 to 17 gigawatt of power requirement. As far as the my company's story, STT GDC India, presently we are one of the leader with the 320 megawatt IT capacity in place. And as far as the uh, sustainability requirement is concerned, sustainability is the prime goal for most of the data center company, including our company. And as you have told, as Karthikeyan has told, ki almost 66% company has already made their target. So we have also have the pledge to have the entire data center operation carbon free by 2030, and we are moving in the same direction. And as on FY24, we are having 48% of our power consumption from the renewable energy sources. And for FY25, we are hopeful that we will cross 50% or we will touch 50%. And going forward, we will able to achieve our target. And for achieving our target, there are couple of things which we also need from the industry partner, we need from the government for meeting our net zero target. So first of all is the quantum of power availability for the data center which is necessary, and then green quotient of the power at a scale. Presently, some of the state, due to the internal state regulations, we are stuck up because of their energy banking and TOD restrictions do not allow us to increase more than 67 to 70%. Some states we are having restriction due to contract demand restrictions. Some states we are having restrictions on the open access approval. Some states we are still waiting for the wind solar hybrid policy. So if these three four things will be patch up, we will definitely going to achieve our target. Thank you, Vibhuti.
Sure, sir. Also wanted to get a sense if you can also touch upon from the demand side measures on energy efficiency. Are there any initiatives being taken, from energy efficiency perspective as well?
Yeah, so as far as the technology is concerned, our data center are already AI deployed and ready for AI, and we have uh, we are also adopting liquid cooling at our data center. And for further energy efficiency, uh, most of our equipment which we are sourcing. Uh, we are also keeping one quotient while doing the procurement. What is the consumption of the energy in each equipment? So that is also being taken care at supply chain management level, so that we can achieve the lower power utilization effectiveness. And if you will see earlier, the weighted average power utilization effectiveness of the most of the data center in India was in the range of 1.8 to 1.7, and then it came down to 1.6. And for the new data center which we are going to deliver, our target is to achieve almost 1.4 to 1.43. So that is the way we can say that we are reducing energy consumption at our data center year on year basis.
Okay, that's good to know, Mr. Akhil. Mr. Girish, coming to you, if you can share what is happening at SIFI Technologies, both on the demand side and the supply side, and the kind of targets that have been set up internally for the organization.
Yeah, definitely, Vibhuti. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, see, basically, when we speak about the sustainability or the net zero initiative is not only limited to the operations or not only limited to renewable power, but it starts from the design, it carried to the projects, and then it comes to the operation. When I talk about the design, what is your data center design? The earliest is with a very high PUE. Now, the design of the data center or operating data centers are running at 1.3, 1.35 PUE. And with the new technologies which are coming, which we are talking about the direct to chip cooling, which we are talking about the liquid immersion cooling, we are talking about the rear door heat exchanger cooling, we can achieve a 1.2 PUE, and that one thing we have already tested at our data center. SIFI is the only player in the colo environment who has tested 138 kilowatt rack with NVIDIA GPU chips. and NVIDIA certified on this new technology. So first part is when it comes to the design, how you design your data center, how you improve your PUE, how you reach out to your zero WUE, that is water utilization effectiveness, that is prime important. Second, when it comes to the project phase, in the project phase, the building you are constructing, we are going for the green building certification for all our data centers. So going for the platinum certification, that actually uh, provides the culture and percolates the ideas amongst everybody within the organization about the environment, your pledge to the environment to maintain the lowest impact on the environment when you are doing the construction activities. And when it comes to the operation, so in operation, which is predominantly making a larger impact on environment because of the power usage. So how we have started our journey, first is to have the ESG goals very clearly defined, then going for the definition of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So scope 1, which limits to your own generation of the carbon footprint, predominantly because of your GHG gases, and second thing is from the diesel burns, and second thing is the power what you use. Now, scope 1 and scope 2 are very easy to replace with reduction in the carbon footprint by replacement of the technology, replacement of the process, where you can reduce the greenhouse gas impact with adopting the new type of the refrigerants which are available in the market, evenly by reducing your diesel consumption. And in when it comes to the scope 2, where you have to replace the conventional power with the green power, you have to enter into a different renewable contracts. So when we talk about the renewable contracts, there are multiple methodologies and multiple operational practices are available across the different states. Either you go with the intrastate and interstate. So definitely we are targeting to replace almost 70% of our conventional power with the green power by year 2027, and 75% to 80% by year 2030. That is the target we are taking. Not limiting to scope 1 and scope 2, we are also heading towards the scope 3, where we are also bringing our partners and our supply chain logistics into the arena, educating them about their activities and how they can contribute into the sustainability. And we also target that we can submit our reports into GRI, so that we will make it public to the public domain to understand the initiatives and can definitely learn from what are the steps to be taken. Yeah, Vibhuti.
Interesting. Mr. Girish, as you rightly pointed out, it's not only about the energy or the electricity shift to cleaner energy, but there are a lot more things that needs to be considered in the design phase when we are talking about sustainability of the data centers, whether it's on water use or whether it is even in terms of energy efficiency we did mention, but yeah, there are other elements as well, and considering scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 as well, even the construction which you talked about. And that, somehow I just got intrigued, Mr. Girish. Now India has developed the green credit program as well as the carbon market. So once you have achieved your targets, are there any plans of earning revenues and expanding the feasibility of these solutions, and especially for scope 3 players, by helping them out, because usually they are very small players or MSMEs players, where adopting of such solutions might be difficult because they are still expensive. So what are the plans for you in terms of using some of these platforms like carbon market or green credit program, because you are doing much beyond looking at reducing greenhouse gas emissions as well? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So see, basically when we enter into a partnership with renewable partners or renewable generation partners. We also insist them to open an IREC registration, and all the generations which are happening, we are getting the IREC credits also. Those credits we are banking, okay, and that is will be utilized, because as Akhil has rightly mentioned that some of the states in India doesn't allow you to replace the 100% conventional power with the green power. But if I want to get the net zero, then the net zero can be achieved with these carbon credits. So IREC registration and banking of that credits from the RE power generation, we have already initiated, and all my partners currently are having the same kind of arrangements with SIFI.
Okay, great. Thanks. Again, encouraging to hear that how the companies are planning to achieve net zero with all the limitations that exist with the current regulations. Mr. Sindhu, if I can bring you in now. We have been talking about these policy level bottlenecks at times, on the green open access rule, or even in terms of, the quantum being restricted. From ESG perspective, I mean, as well, there are a lot of requirements when you are looking, even from financing and on the disclosures front as well. How do you see this policy acting as a big bottleneck? And also, if you can share in terms of, your experience with different states, and if you can highlight states which are more progressive and states, where this act as, it's very, some states are, I would say, laggards, and are creating these hurdles for especially the CNI players, and even which includes data centers as well, to go the green route.
Thank you, Vitish. Sure. First of all, I would like to talk about our targets, and then really, and then I'll take your question and I'll answer that. So Nestra being a part of Airtel Group, at a Airtel level, we have a net zero SBTI linked target to reach net zero by 2050. But considering the nature of business in which we have adopted a net zero target to reach by 2031, which is quite an aggressive target. Considering the way demand is going up with AI, ML coming in, and hyperscalers coming into the Indian market. But at the same time, and for achieving this net zero target by 2031, we have a definite strategy in place, both for the demand side and for the supply side. Under demand side interventions, as Girish and Akhil explained, we likewise we are also putting a whole lot of efforts at the design side, as well as we are the only data center player in India having all of our core and hyperscale campuses certified by ISO 50001. And we are putting all sort of efforts, to cut short the energy usage across our operations. If you'll talk about the supply side, we have a major focus on renewable energy. Till date, we have contracted for more than 350 megawatt of RE supply. Along with we are not just signing a bilateral contract or doing it for the generating the IREC or credits. We are actually replacing the actual consumption, and we are that too. We are doing long term partnerships. So we have invested in more than 16 power companies where we have actually put in our actual equity capital. At the same time, just wanted to highlight that we are the only data center player in India showing our commitment towards RE, registered with RE 100, which is one of the premium membership if you'll see across the globe. Along with what Karthikeya said when he was explaining how this is important, that to meet the ramp up with the actual demand going up, we are also evaluating the new technologies. So we have also installed hydrogen ready fuel cell power plant at one of our data center in Bangalore. We have started with half a megawatt, and we are going to add another 1.5-2 megawatt at the same location. So these are the things which show our efforts, in and around the and supply side as well as demand side, through which we will be able to achieve our net zero target. With respect to the regulation hurdles which we are facing across various states. So, I would say thank you if you've asked this question to me, because we are the only company in India having, location across all the states, and because of the captive DCs which we have, serving the Airtel requirement. Uh, I would say in last 2 to 3 years, we have seen a considerable move, and the policy are coming up in favor of the CNI consumers, especially after green energy open access coming in 2 years back, and around 90% of all these states have adopted it. Uh, the major issue which we are facing is with respect to the TOD settlement, as well as, there are few states, I'll not like to mention the name, but everyone is aware of, there are few states who are restricting the supply, with the contract demand, and Karthik has already explained it. So, and there are few states who are still coming up, yet to come up with their open access policies, where we really want to put in more investment, but because of all these roadblocks, we are, holding back, and we will definitely invest in next few years. This is on the regulatory piece, and happy to answer if you have any other question, please.
So you did mention restriction on the open access. Is buying power directly from discoms also an option? I mean, but how do you kind of classify as green becomes still an issue. But there are states which have come up specifically supplying renewable energy power, and but charging a green, which some states have. Again, like Gujarat, it is quite expensive, but then on the other hand, there are other states, where it's just 25 paisa or 50 paisa extra charge, which distribution companies are charging from the customers. So how do you see buying directly from discoms to kind of, ensure that the power that is being bought is sustainable?
So, Vibhuti, we believe in the actual replacement. So, if I'll pay, it's more, if I pay to the discoms and take credits, or, as say that they will certify us that they are supplying 100% RE, or the quantum which will, pay for the specific quantum. I don't think so that we are actually contributing to the grid. We really want to invest. We really want to make Indian grid green, so that the overall emission factor of the Indian grid goes down. Currently, if you will see, the emission factor is in the range of 0.716 tons of CO2 equivalent, and we really want that the target which India has adopted, that to reach around zero point 0.5 or 0.426 in next 5 years. uh, you know uh, if a company like us will not show these efforts, I'm really surprised, who is going to put it. Because if you'll just ban on government to put the all the efforts and take the RE power, it's really tough. So for CNI consumer like us, it's our responsibility to put efforts and invest in the green energy to make grid green.
Right. I think.
So Vibhuti, I would like to second Sindhu, because Sindhu has very rightly said we data center company are one of the biggest consumer of the power, and if we will do more and more captive PPA and bring the physical power and replace the discom power with the physical RE power, it will be more better as compared to the greenwashing, which is being done by through IRAC procurement from the plant which you have not set up, or buying green tariff from the discom by paying 50 paisa or 66 paisa additional. Even though for some of the cities where there are restrictions, we are also doing. But having said that, we believe more captive PPA to have the physical power in.
Right, but then you also get burdened with additional surcharges. Does the power still make more cost competitive compared to buying
Yeah,
No,
from
no, in
discom?
captive,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, in
absolutely.
case of captive, we do not require to pay additional surcharge and cross subsidy surcharge. We
For
have to
open
pay.
access,
Yeah,
yes.
we have to just pay the open access charges over and above of the busbar charges.
Vibhuti, this is the beauty which we have in India. The RE is cheaper than the grid power and the other power options available in the market. That's why, few of the hyperscalers are setting up their plants in India by generating credits in India and, offsetting their outside India footprint. So it's good that we have a cheap RE available in India. And that's why we are physically replacing this.
Right. Karthike, let me come back to you. I mean, you have heard the buyers of power, perspective. Do you have any reflection on what they just said from the supplier point of view, and any additional regulatory bottlenecks that you kind of face and ways to address the same? If you can just highlight that.
Sure. So I think views from Sindhu and Akhil and Girish, uh, it's obviously music to any IPP's ears. They are all having demand side customers who can consume 200 or 300 megawatts of round the clock power, right? And if you just seen my graphs, it's typically three times of whatever they are using. So if it's a, let's say, 25 megawatt RTC that I was showing, we are looking at close to 70-75 megawatt of solar and wind capacity, right? So 200 megawatts of around the clock demand equates to about 600 megawatts of RE capacity. Now that's a massive contribution, right? Given the number of data center companies that we have, of course, the people we have on the panel today are, of course, top five, three of the top five data center folks in the country. But having said that, there are, I think, at least 15 or 16 active data center operators in the country today, and that number is growing. So imagine, steady state, a decade from now, each one of them had, let's say, on an average, has about 200 megawatts. The data center industry alone can underpin about 50 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. That's over 10% of our 2030 goal, right? So I think the data center industry is a very important pillar for India in not only achieving its economic growth, right? Because renewable energy is more of a second order impact of the data center industry, but the first order impact is actual economic growth, right? More data center means more dependable internet accessibility to the the people in the country, and more internet access, as we have seen, is directly proportional to information and growth. So I think it should be one of the top 10 priority areas at the national policy level to enable data center proliferation. In order to enable that, enabling them to buy renewable energy at good prices, given the unique nature of power demand, that it kind of steps up over 2 to 3 year periods in any one place, you need to give them certain leeway, right? So that it allows them to kind of have some certainty. See, we as RE producers, and this, right? You're always, Vibhuti, you're always part of all of these discussions around how policies, shifting sands in India are impacting our growth, right? I think there could be specific power consuming sectors which are important for national growth, who get a leeway, who get a pass through in a way on these policies, for power. And we are gunning for that. We are working with our data center customers to ensure that we make the right kind of representations, or help our data center partners make the right kind of representations for the industry when it comes to power procurement, because it's super important. Like I just shown, right? So in Maharashtra, which is going to have 60% of all data center capacity in India, decides to change their TOD tariff structure, it will turn out that whatever capacity people have planned, it'll turn around completely. It'll be a 180-degree turn, right? And who's going to bear the brunt of that? It's going to be borne between the power producers and the data center guys, right?
Right.
And we are both going to lose money, and lose steam in that growth profile. So I think, just like the government has made specific leeway for green hydrogen, in terms of, let's say, kind of giving them banking over the ISTS network, or waiving certain charges over a longer period of time, I think data center operators also deserve similar leeway. And yeah, I would say that would be my opinion on this.
Okay. But tell me, I've been hearing about wind solar hybrid to meet the demand for the data center. What is the role of storage here? Do you
Oh,
see
huge role. Huge role, Vibhuti. I think storage, right? It's just a matter of storage breaching the economic viability threshold at large scale. So even today, we heard Sindhu talk about deployment of a fuel cell based energy storage solution in one of the data centers. I'm sure it is at a smaller scale. It is more of a POC kind of scale that they've deployed it. But in order to scale, and so think of it like this: energy storage is going to be the key element that would help you cushion from such abrupt policy changes. So for example, if you've signed up a lot of solar and all of a sudden the banking or the TOD structure changes in a way that it becomes disadvantageous to you, you can't take all of that power. But at by that time, if storage has become feasible, you all you need to do is just add storage and be able to offset that damage. In fact, wind, in my experience for the CNI sector, and data center is no different, is a technology which companies only want to rely on when there is no other option left. Because India as a country, first of all, does not have that kind of wind resource. It's not as democratic as solar in India, right? For example, a state like UP or a
Mhm.
state like Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan, the wind profile is not that great. Maybe it is in certain pockets, but all
Right.
of that has already been used. We
Yeah.
don't have the kind of advantage which, let's say, European countries have in terms of their coastline, in terms of the kind of um, ability to pay. Right, wind is more expensive. It's just it boils down to that. Wind is today almost 25 to 30% more expensive than a plain solar solution. Uh, and it's also more variable and it's more uncertain. Whereas data center kind of demand is very straight line. Once they start consuming power, there is very little chance that they would actually stop it. So once you hit a 25 megawatt running load on a data center tower, that's it. That's your reality for time forever.
Yeah.
Um, so
Right.
storage, I think for data centers, and maybe Girish or Akhil or Sindhu can add more about it. There are two kinds of plays. One is ahead of the meter. So, for example, right alongside our power production, we deploy storage. Another one is because these guys need a lot of power reliability. They might see a lot of storage deployment even behind their meter in order to add their uninterrupted power supply. So I would say, maybe take a view from the other speakers also.
So kind of
Yeah,
replacing the DG set as well.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Vibhuti, just want to add up what Karthikeya has told and Karthikeya has presented. So Karthikeyan has told that basis the new TOD proposed regulation in Maharashtra, his combination of the wind solar hybrid can replace up to 79%. And I am not going to limit myself for the 79%. My task for Karthikeyan is to why can't we have 100% by adding the battery storage. So that is the new normal which is going to place at data center. When I joined this company in Bayback 2019-20, we were relying on single technology. Either we were doing the PPA with a wind waste plant or we were doing from a solar waste plant. From 2022, we have started procuring power from wind solar hybrid. And now time has come that we need RERTC by adding the storage. And later on, this storage can be a PSP, it could be a on-site small modular reactor. Because, when I joined this company, I was being asked to procure 25 MVA power for my data center, and 3 year back, I have been told to procure 100 MVA power for my new campuses. And 2 year back, I have been told to procure 200 MVA power for my new campus. And in last 3 months, I have been told to procure 500 MVA power for my data center. So you can understand the way AI is driving the demand. And for meeting this demand, frankly speaking, this open access C&I is not going to serve my purpose. I need a smaller modular reactor who can serve round the clock power, or a robust uh, wind solar hybrid coupled with PSP or coupled with strong BESS a must for us.
Yeah, that was one thing which I wanted to check. But before that, I think Mr. Akhil, IPPs would be more than happy to incorporate storage as part of the overall solution if there are buyers for that expensive power. So I think there's this whole tussle between what price are you ready to pay versus what the solution is being offered. But I think growingly, with the declining costs, there is more appetite for now
Yes.
buying.
Yeah, so that's what I have told you. Na, ki now time has come,
Yeah.
came because we are not incorporated BSS in 2019 or 20 or 21, 22. Now when we are going towards 26, 25, 26, 27, whatever we will plan now, we will deliver power in 2027. So when we will deliver the power in 2027, then without storage, there is no mean for procuring the power.
Right, right. Mr. Girish, let me come back to you. I mean, Mr. Akhil mentioned the role of small reactors to meet the demand for data centers. I have a very fundamental question here. Uh, in the absence of taxonomy, what constitutes green, what constitutes sustainable is still like a gray area. There are countries where even nuclear is not considered sustainable. So different countries have different taxonomies. So how do you see a nuclear power plant, or even I just even today there were news about gas-based power being used by certain data centers, which again, according to some of the countries' definition, gas cannot be considered green. So given India still does not have that proper definition, what is the thinking at the data center level? And especially when you said you also talked about reporting to as part of the GRI. So where are we on that? Sorry, Mr. Girish, you are on mute.
Sorry. So I will just give a quick insights on, because recently I was invited as a speaker for IFC, that is World Bank Forum, who is supporting to all those sustainability projects as well as for the data centers. And they invited across all the APAC countries, and a lot of expertise was there who was talking about all the new technologies which are coming towards this green initiatives. So first is definitely everybody was very enthusiastic to understand of the SMR. Okay, and there is currently only one organization, one hyperscaler has already declared that they are exploring SMR. They have not installed SMR, but somebody, a very senior consultant who was having an experience, they do mention that talking about SMR and installing SMR is two different things, because to get an SMR on site, either it is a 500 megawatt, 700 megawatt SMR, the total process of approvals and installing that and making it operational, it is not less than 7 years process. So first thing is, this is something which is more, he's seeing as a more of a publicity rather than the actual solution which can be adopted. Hence, what is remaining and what is the best possible solution, what is adopted in the European countries, what is adopted in the FPJC countries, is more of a energy storage. Now, energy storage is looked from two perspectives. One is on-site battery storage, or another is at the source battery storage, which Karthik has rightly mentioned. But currently, as far as the India environment goes, most of the states are providing you the banking solution, which is a very lucrative option. And that is where the energy storage is becoming a costly affair compared to using the grid banking, which is coming at a very low cost or coming at actually a zero cost. Now, slowly, the discoms at the different states will be actually going to curtail this banking at the grid level. Then the energy storage through batteries is going to become the most lucrative solution. And I have seen in Malaysia as well as in Sydney, there are gigawatts of data centers are coming, and those data centers are coming with this energy storage solution. What they are adopting over here is adaptation of energy storage to replace the diesel generator set, as well as using the green power to storage and providing it for 24 by 7. Now, definitely the question is coming, is the battery storage, it is the green solution or not? Because that point is also got debated over there. But one good part is, for the batteries, there is a proper structural process of recycling is available across multiple countries, and hence it is not 100% green, but definitely it is closer to the green. At the same time, the questions are coming on hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen gensets on site, but we have explored that. There is only one data center has deployed the hydrogen fuel cells, but the amount of space required for storage of hydrogen and your technology, what you need to adopt for the generation of hydrogen and making the hydrogen to run into generation to give you green electrons itself is very high. So one is the space, another is the capex, and third is the operating cost is currently very high. But once this technology becomes more and more usable, the cost will come down. So if you ask me, I think what we can look forward, point number one is the storage using the battery or pump storage. There are projects coming with the pump storage also. That is also most better projects, but having very high capex. And then next is the hydrogen storage that I can see as a technologies, and that will become a very clear definition in terms of the green power availability.
Great. Thanks, Girish. This is very insightful and, brings certain clarity in terms of stacking of some of these solutions to begin with from now and in the coming years when these solutions might become feasible when the costs decline. Sindhu, do you have any different views or you kind of agree with what Girish just said?
No, I agree with what Girish said. But at the same time, I still believe that there's a room for battery storage, and likewise, Akhil said, it's the right time we should start working on the solution at least. We should now start pushing developers like Sunshore to come up with the right solution, not the vanilla solution, replacing 70-75%. We are okay to give more commercial, to give higher commercials if tomorrow they will able to add another 5%, 10%, or 15%. So I don't think so that will be a challenge to any data centers provider. We should start working on the same piece. I still believe that battery storage is the right solution to work upon. Pump storage need a whole lot of investment, as well as the lead time is really high. The only pump storage solution which we were commissioning from last many years in India has not yet started. So considering all this and with the rates arrived in last, or I would say derived, or the lucrative rates which we are which we have identified, or uh, I would say discovered in last 6 months in various government bids, I believe uh, companies like Sunshore will be able to give us some good rates with battery storage.
Vibhuti,
Yeah.
I will also second Grish, where Grish has told that battery storage should be used in the data center campus, because it will not only replace the DG set, but also at that time of severity, it can help the DISCOM to provide the power during the peak time. And in one of the European country, even one of the data center of the Microsoft has supported providing the peak power to the grid from their own storage. So I also support what Greece has told with respect to on-site BSS.
Right. And Mr. Akhil, I mean, are the states responding well to data centers supplying back to the grid under net metering or gross metering policy? Or are you facing any difficulty?
No, presently we have not. Presently, the good part for the data center is that we are the RTC consumer. So in our case, there is no net metering required. We consume whatever being generated, we will consume that. So
Okay.
presently, there is no any net metering thing.
Yeah, right. Karthike, one last question to you before I hand it back to Hala. Like we are seeing the demand for battery storage coming I mean, I can hear there's a consensus from as you said, three big players present today that there is a demand. How, from the IPP perspective, are you prepared? Are you deploying more storage to provide the RTC power, which also not only meets around 79% of the demand, but 100% with the battery storage? And
Sure.
also, sorry, one more thing, Kartik. Do you think is there any level of demand aggregation happening at your end when you are building these projects, or you are just building projects to meet consumption of one particular data center? How is that happening?
Right. So, see, I'll answer your second question first and then get to the next one. See, because we end up setting up these projects in a captive model, right? In order to avoid levy of cross subsidy and additional surcharge, these assets are dedicated assets, right? And so there is no possibility of demand aggregation as such, given the current regulations in the country. Having said that, battery storage, as an asset, has a fair bit of variability, right? Do I deploy battery storage alongside my captive assets as a dedicated storage asset, or I create a shared storage asset and still get captive status while I use it to churn power from many different captive assets through it. So those kind of things are still pretty much gray areas as per the power policies or the way captive status is evaluated across states, right? So I think the safest way would be even storage being deployed piecemeal. So with every captive asset, you deploy a certain amount of storage, but obviously that might not be the best or the most efficient way to use that asset. But we'll figure that out, I'm sure, over time. But having said that, the way we are as a company moving towards battery storage is we are evaluating solutions, and it will trickle up in the sense that we'll first try and see if we can support about 1 hour or 2 hours of daily usage with battery storage coupled with solar and wind. Then we'll try to grow that. That 2 hours should become 3 hours, then 4 hours, then 5 hours, right? Right now, we need to kind of find the sweet spot, which in my opinion is about 90 minutes to 2 hours a day being supported by battery storage. That does definitely bring up the cost of power, delivered power, but not to a point where it becomes unviable for data center consumers. But the stage at which the data center industry is today is a stage of explosive growth, right? So anyone who's sitting on, and Akhil, I think, summed it up very well, that 4 years ago he was looking at a 25 megawatt procurement, and today he's looking at a 500 megawatt procurement. Now, how many IPPs exist who can actually participate in a 500 megawatt procurement from a private player in India? I think not even a handful, right? Because all of those, and I've said this before, that kind of capacities, 500 megawatts of RE, intrastate networks today cannot support that kind of deployment. So you naturally end up gravitating towards the ISTS network. Now, the ISTS network, you see the utilities are fighting for that. So it's a fight between large scale utility procurers of power and large scale CNI procurers of power, where the utility wants to bid out 50 gigawatts, whereas people like data centers or steel or other such guzzlers, aluminium, are also looking at maybe 2 or 3 gigawatts of procurement a year, right? So one making space for the other, and for IPPs like us to deploy that capital and to understand our risks across both of those off takers, it becomes a complex problem to solve. So, in the light of all of this, a new technology deployment like BESS has to, move slower, because in explosive growth mode, what you first need is power. You say that, okay, whatever is the fastest way to get power, first let me get power through that. Naturally, you default towards solar. Then you say the next one is of course wind, and then the third one is BESS, and it will come one by one. First 1 hour, then 2 hour, then 4 hour, and so on. So that's how I see it evolving.
So
Great. Yeah.
Vibhuti, I will just say last thing. As Kartikin has told, कि Discom has already started uh, competition with the C&I customer with respect to ISTS GNA approvals. So Maharashtra being predominant state for the data center perspective, India's more than 60% data center concentration are in Navi Mumbai, and Pune. Despite of that, till date, Maharashtra has not given ISTS NOC under the new GNA regime, and they are just allowing TGNA, temporary GNA. But since they are not having capacity, they are rejecting the GNA applications. So all the generating capacity is to be vouched on the intrastate. So now there is a challenge for the Karthikeyan kind of IPPs to figure out the good wind locations, good solar locations to integrate with their projects and to pump in power to our kind of data centers.
Yeah, I think increasingly evacuation is becoming a bottleneck. So, not having enough transmission infrastructure, not only for small power demand from data centers like yours, even for the large grid scale, it's becoming increasingly a big bottleneck. And I think not planning in advance is now coming in the way of, while there is enough supply that can come up easily in 12 to 18 months, and there is enough demand, but at the same time we don't have the infrastructure to evacuate that power where the demand is. So, and co-location may not always be possible. So yes. With this, thank you to all the panelists, Mr. Girish, Mr. Sindhu, Mr. Akhil, Kartike, for an enriching discussion. And with this, I'll hand it back to Ala. Thank you.
Thanks, Vibhuti. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. A big thanks to our esteemed speakers for this wonderful session. We will now be screening the questions and inquiries that have been posted by our audience. So, this is our first question. Can small modular fusion reactors help reach hyperscale data center energy demands with environmental sustainability goals?
So I think, as I mentioned in my discussion, right, that is coming from after discussing with a lot of expertise across the globe, those who are consulting into data center. See, basically, SMR are still the technology which is getting discussed. It is not yet deployed for any data centers. Only one hyperscaler has very recently announced that they are exploring the feasibility. So there are two aspects. One is the statutory clearance to have your SMR at your place of 500 megawatt. And second thing is the construction and the operating process. So it is a news. We have to wait for at least one more year to see that the roadmap towards SMR. But if it is becoming as a successful solution for the data center, then definitely it will get replicate. But currently, I see the path for the SMRs for the data center is not very smooth. There are a lot of hurdles are there, being the nuclear reactors in a residential area will be very tough to accept by the government, especially when we talk about the government of India. The privatization of SMR is absolutely not acceptable. So very soon we are not seeing this solution coming to India.
Thank you, Mr. Davle, for answering that question.
Hey,
Next,
just one more thing, Ala. Just before you move on from that question, I think it mentioned small modular fusion reactor. The
yeah.
SMRs are not a fusion reactor; it's a fission reactor.
Yeah,
So
fission reactor. Yeah,
fusion technology is, I think, a few couple of generations away.
yeah.
Thank you.
Uh, and
Thank
another hurdle is that you have to do the change in the Atomic Energy Act for allowing the private sector to pitch in into the nuclear area, because presently this act do not allow private sector to put in the even the nuclear energy plant in India. So which is also under discussion by the nuclear Energy Commission with the Ministry of Power and Ministry of MNRE. This is under discussion right now. So first that act needs to amend, then only anything can be possible in India.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Our next question is, which software tools are being used by energy teams to simulate strategies and optimize projects for constraints like capex budget, normalized tariff, CO2 intensity, SKU, etc.? How much of the analysis is still on Excel and emails, or is this in house?
I'll take this up, and then rest
Yeah.
all can talk about it. So Nestra, being a part of Airtel, we are deploying good amount of capex, to onboard various digitization tools, uh, and we are doing it in house too. We have a IT team in place who is actually developing tools to analyze and evaluate and track and monitor the various KPIs identified under each material issue of under each of the bucket of ESG. I'm not very sure on other about other data centers, but we are doing this.
Would anyone else like to contribute to this question?
No, as Sindhu has told, so our IT team is also under developing the tool, but presently we are doing everything is on Excel.
Okay. So, showing the next question here. How are you seeing hydrogen fuel cells technology as a renewable energy source as it is emerging technology in the RE space?
So it's not 100% RE if you are using gas as an input to the fuel cell, which we are doing right now. Uh, when we'll have the economics will work out for hydrogen, then only this will be 100% RE. But we can likewise we have deployed. You can start with gas supply. At least your power will be around 45-50% RE, being the hydrogen component being a part of their input. But we see this market growing across the globe. This is growing, and in next few years, we will find some development.
Yeah. Only thing is that even the gas-based fuel cell is having less carbon emission as compared to the thermal power, because gas is having the less carbon emission compared to the coal-based power.
Thank you for answering that, sir. Our next question is, does adoption of liquid cooling means more power consumption as well? Would appreciate some numbers to compare.
No, actually, liquid cooling, because there are two types of technologies which are coming. One is called as a direct to chip cooling, where actually you are bringing your liquid cooling inside the chip, and as to simplify the solution, like our engine and the radiators, the similar kind of arrangement has been made through the hardware. And when we talk about the GPUs, the liquid immersion coolings are there. Actually it is reducing your consumption of the cooling, where your PUE you can see coming between 1.18 to 1.2. So which is with the conventional it is 1.4 or 1.45. Currently you can reduce the PUV drastically. So definitely liquid cooling doesn't gives you a more power consumption, but actually it improves the efficiency of your hardware.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to contribute to this question?
No, I think so. Grisha has told very well.
Okay. Our next question is, some foreign companies are investing in India for generation of hydrogen fuel cell gensets. What do you think is the future of this technology?
Not sure. Gensets. So what we have installed is the primary source, not as a secondary source. Uh, Currently, I believe that all data center companies are exploring gas-based gensets. Moving to hydrogen fuel cell as a genset we need to evaluate more on this. We're not very sure on this. Yes.
Yeah. So actually, Sindhu, I came across this technology. There is one German company who is developing a complete solution, right from hydrogen generation to it is, we don't say it is an gensets with a conventional, it is a turbine. So that technologies are available, but point number one is when we talk about the space requirement, because you required a lot of space for storage of the hydrogen, being the molecular weight of hydrogen is very low. So for the volume storage of hydrogen, when we talk about data center where you required at least 48 hours of backup or 36 hours of backup, that takes a hell lot of space in terms of the storage. Second thing is the hydrogen gensets or hydrogen turbines required a very special subject matter expertise support, which is not very easily available the way it is available for the diesel gensets. So for diesel gensets in every city, either it is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, you have the service support available. That is not the case with the hydrogen gensets, because those subject matter expertise are currently available with a very high level companies. So in case of problem, or in case of any preventive predictive maintenance, availability of those skills at every location is becoming very difficult. So definitely technology is available, but how much we can adopt this technology for the data center use, this is an question mark.
Thank you for answering that, sir. Um, so we have time for only a couple of more questions left. I'm just portraying the last few questions here. This is for all the panelists. What are the most important factors you consider when determining the ideal energy mix, and what are the things that help you make the decision?
So I will answer this question. This is regarding the energy mix for procuring the green power. So it will depend upon the state to state, because some states are dominated with the wind, some states are dominated with the solar, and some states are having their regulation in such a way that both wind and solar are optimally used in your combo. So it depends upon the state to state. I will give you the example. In case of Maharashtra, the combination could be 70-30, while in case of Karnataka, the combination could be 60-40. And similarly, if you will go in the state of UP, you only have, or Delhi, in case you only have solar available in UP. So you have to procure the power from the ISTS sources. So really depend upon which state your data center is. So energy mix is always depend upon the location.
Yeah, I agree with Akhil. Exactly. That is so we cannot have a very thumb rule formula for
Yes.
the energy mix. So it depends upon state to state and the availability of power. And now there are a lot of methods are available. Like you can have a intrastate, interstate. That is ISTS and intrastate. So uh, when you sit across with your RTC load, I think you need to consider multiple scenarios with the load projections and basis that the availability matrix and the mix you decide.
Yeah. Moreover, I will give you the example in a state like Delhi, up to up to 1 year back or 2 year back, 80% of my power is being fed from the waste to energy plant. So waste to energy plant is also qualified under the uh, renewable energy. So it really depend upon the location, your constraint. So even if you are going to set up a data center in the northern part of India, you can have renewable energy from the small hydro plants also.
Correct.
Yeah, so go ahead, sir.
No, that's all from my side.
Yeah,
It's
thank you so much.
a location dependent, basically.
All right. So, a couple of more questions here. Do data centers view hydrogen fuel cell based power generators as a key source of power or merely as a substitute for digisets?
So I think so we have already answered this.
Correct.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next question here. Have any of you tested hourly or 15-minute matching of consumption and generation? Any discussions internally of following a 24/7 CFE goal like Google instead of now basic RE100 targets?
Correct. So let me take this. We are working on the same since we have a RTC load, and we recently signed off our first ISTS contract. Deliveries in next 2 years. The first delivery will be next year. Having both the sources, solar and wind, and using the tool at the demand side as well, at the consumption point as well as at the generation side. We also installed meters at the demands at the consumption side too. So we are doing that. We are matching this at a 15 minutes basis.
I'll be screening the last question for the day. So AI or Gen AI is a big disruptor. The growth of AI in last 18 months will significantly push out the net zero goals for all companies in my view. What does the panel think?
No, I'm not agreeing with this. The requirement will increase, but the AI power consumption requirement do not push out of the rest for the greening. Greening will always be a core objective as per the pledge which every data center company has taken. Yes, there may be a delay for getting the goals, but it will never push out. Even it will be a better proposition for us to procure more power rather than small bit and pieces power. Like earlier, what was the thing, as Karthikeyan has also told, that a data center takes minimum 24 months to 36 months for reaching the full load from a 2 megawatt load to 10 megawatt, 10 megawatt to 15, and then 25 megawatt. But AI requirement is different. In a AI requirement, 40% load comes from the day one. And with that, the initial power purchase agreement will be a volume power purchase agreement, and we can easily club the pump storage hydro also in our mix of energy, and with that we can also achieve the RERTC.
Absolutely, Akhil. So we don't see this as a challenge because most of these load shall be catered by the hyperscale campuses, and those campuses will be connected at a transmission level. And with the high demand, we'll be in a better position to meet. We don't see this as a challenge.
Thank you for answering those questions. We have received a few more questions, so I will just we just have time to take the last two. So I'll screen them now. What is the estimated project cost of setting up a data center? I believe primary challenge in data center construction is predicting future capacity needs. What provisions of scalability do one need to consider to cater to growing demand?
I think Greece to answer this.
Okay,
You are
so
expert.
see, yeah, no, no. See, basically, now, if I look at from the India's story earlier, we used to have a standalone data centers with 12 megawatt, 18 megawatt of the capacity. Now today, every player is building the data center in campuses. So in campuses, it is not less than 40 to 50 megawatt of each data center capacity. So definitely cost is derived for two components. One we called as a core and shell, and another we called as a internal fit out. Now the core and shell cost is predominantly uh, becoming same. It is not very high, or not seen as a major change. The change is only coming in terms of the your float loading capacity, which we are earlier designing for 1500, we are now designing for 2,500. So mota, if you ask me what is the cost, I will tell you exactly. Just one sec. Yeah. So the core and shell, if I build, I'm having the cost of around 52K per kilowatt. So 52,000 per kilowatt is the core and shell cost. And when it comes to the power, so because now we are discussing on the power, it comes to around 15,000 rupees per kilowatt is the power infrastructure built. And when it's come to the internal fit out, so internal fit out is comes to around 2.5 lakhs per kilowatt. But it changes because your technology changes. So in a big sense, you can say we spend around 3 lakh rupees per kilowatt for the data center build. So it's a capex intensive business. When you build one data center, you have to spend not less than 700 to 800 crore.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So, last question for the day. The BS systems will add to scope 3 emissions, won't they?
So from the regulation side, there is no such regulation,
Yeah.
clarity which we have from the from SEBI or any of the regulator in India. This is a matter of discussion. I believe no one has even used battery for RE generation till date. What do you think, Rakil?
No, no, it's not like that. Some of the large companies has already started this, but
In India?
yeah. But you are very correct that there is no such regulation.
Correct.
So I'm with you on this.
So, thank you for that, sir. And thank you to our audience and our esteemed panelists. With this, we have come to the end of the virtual event. And a special thanks to Ms. Vibhuti Garg for superbly managing the session. Your expertise and guidance enhanced the quality of the discussions. Our gratitude to all the speakers for taking the time out of their busy schedules for this key industry initiative. And a big shout out to our attendees for extending your time and support for the event. So, as we conclude this event, 2 meeting rooms will be available for networking, and attendees are encouraged to join and connect with one another. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.